to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Jocelyn Chong, sales and money mindset coach. Please enjoy Jocelyn Chong. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I am here with Jocelyn Chong, sales and money mindset coach. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Mari. I'm so delighted to come as your guest today and would just hope to share some wise wisdom and my personal journey with your listeners.
Oh, I'm so excited for them to hear your personal journey and the wisdom and bits and pieces, and for us to chat about creativity. But before we get into that, if you wouldn't mind letting our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned earlier, I'm a sales and money mindset coach. I'm a multi-author for 4 international best-selling books, and also a keynote speaker, a podcast host, and I've got a history of 2 decades of banking and finance career, which I was in leadership, I was a financial advisor, and also I led a lot of national projects as well. So those were the key, really strong areas that I developed skills and supported my team in my corporate career.
Nice. I mean, I love it. It's so multifaceted, being an author and a speaker and a coach and having the history of working in the finance world. I mean, the wealth of knowledge and information you bring is wonderful and fantastic. And I'm curious, of all of the things you do, what's your favorite?
Every single season of that career chapter, I loved it. I was a very quick learner. And what I found is that the core part of my career, I was a financial advisor. And I love that core part because I'm in front of clients, or I'm in front of my financial advisors who reported to me, and to help them serve more clients. What I noticed was I was able to really help people manage their finances, protect their finances, and really earn with ease. And so numbers and money was very core part of my 20-year career. And to really help people understand the power of knowing how to connect with clients, the customer journey, and my advice to really sell with ease, not forceful, not pushy, because finance is quite a sensitive topic for a lot of people. And so I really coach them around how they can make people feel comfortable, because our clients would hand us $500,000 or $1 million or $5 million. So it's important that they trust us and that they want to work with us, because you're handing over such a large sum of money. So I love that part of my career because it's a lot to do with building that genuine connection with someone, and then really helping them grow their wealth. And then, there were many occasions where people retired, and then, once they move on to their retirement phase, and then they actually pass on, we look after their estate. We would deal with those type of scenarios quite regularly. So it's a privilege sometimes to see the end of the whole cycle, because we will execute, their accounts and help them, invest that, move that on to their kids or their grandkids. So it's actually quite a privileged role to be able to get so much insights. I've got clients who would share things with me that they would never tell their kids.
Mm.
That kind of
Yeah.
information. And I have couples sitting in front of me. They will talk about money, habits, issues that they will never discuss unless it was set up in that container that's really, really safe for them to share with me. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
that's unique, that's really privileged to be able to access that level of information that you not talk at a dinner table easily with a whole bunch of friends. So
Right.
yeah.
Nice. I love that explanation. And the themes that come up for me as you're talking of like communication and trust and building that foundation with people, which I imagine lends itself so beautifully to being a speaker and an author and a coach as well. So great foundation to have to launch into all the other areas that you are now working in. So
Yes. And those were building blocks, it takes time to develop those skills. It
right.
takes time to coach a couple. It
Yeah.
takes time to learn to earn their trust. And at the start of my career, we have got strategies, we've got, books and methodology and framework to follow. But every single human being that sits in front of me as my client is
Mhm.
different. No
Yeah.
one is the same. And I
Mhm.
need to really be mindful of that. At the start of a career, you're young, you don't think that way, right? You think, I can be creative, but you're dealing with someone who is, 20 to 30 years ahead of me, and I'm giving them financial advice. Yes, I
Yeah.
got the title and the credibility and the education and the certification to warrant that, but
Mhm.
it is more than that. It is
Yeah.
actually communicating with the person right in front of me and really understand where they come from, listen to them actively, really care, like really care for what they want to achieve with their finances, with their financial goals, with their vision and their desires. So it's all that. It's very powerful.
Yeah, it is. And it sounds like there's also a fair amount of creativity that can show up within this and the conversations and the problem solving. And I'm really curious, what does it mean to you to be creative?
I love that question because I think for me, creativity means you allow your mind to think openly. And
Mm.
I find that when I am not restrictive in the way I approach things, I
Mhm.
can allow creativity to really flow. Once I am restrictive or I'm too focused on one approach, then my creativity is actually limited.
Mm.
So to give you an example, when we explained our strategies to our clients, we've got graphs and modeling and all that. But the best way to actually explain to them is to actually draw pictures. And my drawing isn't the best. So I got to be creative around drawing it the other way around, facing the client. So that
Yeah.
is one area of mastery where you present, you draw it for them to capture it because you're sitting in front of the couple. And
Mhm.
that requires creativity. The other thing that I used to do is to draw on a whiteboard and explain that to them and
Mm.
use things that they can actually connect with, they can actually relate with. So
Mhm.
I would listen very intently around what they tell me during the meeting. They want to go to Italy. So I would relate to what Italy is all about,
Yeah.
why they want to go to Italy. Or someone might want to go to US for a holiday, or someone might want to, do a cruise when they retire 3 times a year. So I have to be creative to listen and then draw those pictures to go, this is where you are now. This is
Mhm.
where your vision is. And in the middle, I will walk you through step by step to get there safely, comfortably. And if there is anything that is going to be a challenge, we will overcome it together. So you
Yeah.
are not going to feel that you are alone in this journey. So
Mhm.
that was how I would bridge the gap. And that then we'll like, all right, how we can help them understand and keep things really, really simple.
Yeah.
Creatively, I like to use my very common analogy around chocolate cake. So I always say, I can give you all the best chocolate cake recipe that I use. But the reality is that when you go and buy butter, there's a variety of butter at the store. Eggs. You could, bake it with cold eggs, or you could bake it with room temperature. The quality of the cocoa that you use is different. Every brand of cocoa has got a different level of texture. So it will impact on the quality of your moist chocolate cake. And of course, every single oven has, different way, although everything could be, 350 degrees, but every oven does it differently. So it's to help them go, yeah, this might be the recipe and the ingredients of success, but how can we apply it to meet your needs? And to use analogy or to use things that is relevant for them so that they could receive that and feel safe, comfortable to move on and to progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And from that world, transferring those skills and creativity into being a sales and money mindset coach, phrase tripped me up for a minute, sales and money mindset coach, do you employ similar strategies and creativity, or do you have a different set of strategies that you work with?
So a lot of my foundation are the foundation of how I would teach, but what I always continuously apply is new ways of working creatively with people, because that can always evolve. And so I would use different analogy. I would use different way of explaining things. For example, when I talk about how I do full alignment, I would use, you got an internal compass, but you also have an external compass to tell you your North Star. So how can we align that internally and externally? For coaches that I help who are more spiritually focused, I would go, right, you know what? All of us have got different alignments. So the language that I use would help them tune in and really understand either the concepts, the framework, or the methodology that I teach, that they'll go, yep, I get you. Because ultimately, I want to make it as simple it is for them to go, how can I process this information and then implement that? Because it's the first step is, yep, I know the information, but the magic comes in when you implement it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like you've done so much work to develop these processes and the analogies and to really hone your skills of listening, receiving information, and then making it relatable to your clients. What are some of the challenges that you have come across in this journey, and maybe some of the more creative challenges that you've had, and how did you navigate them?
Oh, there are a lot of challenges, and I will highlight quite a few. Different culture has got different way of seeing things. And so that's one cultural differences that I need to be aware and overcome, number one. Number two is, we work in I have a global business. And so, different people see things differently. You could, different people define things very differently. And different people growth phase is very different. And so I need to be really, really aware of where they are so that I can help them move forward closer to their vision. And that sometimes sometimes I'm so used to one approach that works and get results. I think that it will apply, but it's not all one size fits all. And so it's to think and pull back and go, let me think. This person has told me this. How can I rephrase it or help them reframe it to work and suit their style? Because my style might work for me, but my clients, to get results, they need to apply their style and their uniqueness. And so I need to expand my thinking style, be creative, and think about, all right, how can I simplify it for them that they can just capture it? And so that is the second part. And the third part is, challenges with, there's always challenges with processes, right? You can be using a lot of process and then it creates more confusion, or lack of process, then those cannot follow because there's no structure. So
Yeah.
it's to know how much is enough and to trust that it is enough, because doing more doesn't mean it's going to get better results. Doing more can create more confusion and complexity.
Yeah, I love that
And
reminder.
yes, and what I've found is that to overcome those type of challenges is to always never add more. I love to declutter in a lot of things that I do and go, what can I remove? The bottom 20% to create space for creativity, because it ultimately, creativity is one of our best inner gifts, right? That we can access. And so it's coming from intuition, it's coming from spending, for me, I'll speak for myself, it's coming from spending time in nature. And when I spend time in nature and I access my own creativity, I get more things done in a shorter amount of time. Then I can wallow in hours and get nothing done trying to like figure this complexity out. So to overcome challenges, I always pull myself, breathe, go into nature, or I have a number of pattern interrupters that can help me really reset and then bring in that creativity force into the project or the task in front of me.
I love all of that. And the aspect of cultural differences and how you really have to be flexible and willing to meet people where they're at and the different cultures that they're working within, I think is a beautiful reminder that not everyone experiences on a day-to-day basis, and how much creativity gets to show up in those spaces of, learning through the cultural differences, how we can continue to support people and show up in that space. I think what a beautiful view of creativity that you have in there. So thank you for sharing that. You seem to have, such a foundation of, hard work and joy in what you do. I'm so curious, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
I used to, growing up, I am the eldest, so I didn't have my sibling until she came into my life when I was 5 years old. So I have to figure things out to play by
Yeah.
myself during holidays, during spare time, because my mom can't always play with me because she's also working, and then she has to look after the household. So I've got to figure out how to entertain myself, and that is where my creativity starts to really expand. So I would figure out, all right, how can I make things fun so that my day is joyful? So to give you an example, I used to, this is really interesting, but I used to collect grasshopper.
Oh,
I found them really interesting. And then I used to watch lots of my mom's pot plants grow. I found that it's so fascinating. It's like, wow, like you can see them, grow, you can see the flowers blossom. And I found that's so much creativity in it. And I used to also bake. So for me, baking was using different flavors. One of my earlier recipes that my mom allowed me to play with was chiffon cake recipe. And you can use different flavors. So you can use chocolate flavor, you can use coffee flavor, you can use pandan flavor, you can use strawberry flavor. And I would just like test all of them. And I found that that's really fun because I get to experiment a lot of things. And so that was, an avenue for me to express my creativity.
yeah.
I wasn't as good in terms of drawing, expressing myself when it comes to art. And so that is not really where I excel in. But, I would really attempt to create games out of stones and, think about how I can entertain myself. I mean, if our listeners are listening to this, you can figure out what decade I was born in, because my decade wasn't iPhone. There was no email, and there was no Netflix, right? So it was a lot more manual than that, and so you got to figure things out to play, more so board games. And you'll be so much in the nature, because there was nothing that you hold on to, like when the phone rings, you actually run to the phone to answer the phone, rather than you having the phone right in front of you and knowing who is calling you. This is like, how many years ago? So a lot of things have obviously, transformed, evolved for the better, but that's fun. And, the other thing that was really fun was I used to play with torchlight. So think about this, right? We used to have torchlight, and we used to try to read in under the doona, right? Because it's like, fun and exciting. But now it's like, no, you don't play those things. That I don't know if kids do, but it's different. But you
It
think
is
about, yeah. And also one other thing that I might add is, I used to paint my own room. So every few not every few years, but maybe every second year, I tend to tell my dad, I want to paint my room this color. And I would paint it, and I would select the paint, whether it's lilac, is blue, is green, and just decorate my room and reorganize the furniture and reorganize, my wardrobe. And so it was those level of creativity that I accessed when I was growing up. I don't know, kids these days even do that, but I think they're so much more privileged because they got so many more interesting games and tools to play with.
Yeah. No, I love all of just the stories of how you entertained yourself and the things that were available, and the surprise of who's on the other end of the phone running to the phone. I remember doing that as well, not growing up with iPhones. And I love that reminder that creativity can be changing your environment. So going in nature, or redecorating your bedroom, or changing the color, that even if you don't feel that, drawing or dance or music, maybe those more traditional ideas of what creativity is, you still get to express yourself through creative avenues, like changing colors or reorganizing and redecorating. So thank you for those reminders for our listeners, if they too don't feel that drawing is their creative outlet. So yeah, I'm so curious, when you work with clients and navigate the challenges that they come up with, and I imagine there are many people that don't feel like they're creative or experience creativity differently. How would you encourage someone who doesn't feel creative to find creativity in their life?
I was the other person that I thought I wasn't creative to start off with, because the way the world defines creativity, you need to be in the art sector, you need to be dance, you need to know how to sing, you need to know how to perform, you need to know how to do acting, and you need to know how to draw, you need to be so good in fashion.
Yeah.
But what I started to discover about who I am is that I realized that every one of us have got that creative insight in us. We are born with it, and we just need to activate that creative potential within us. And I realized that mine was dormant because of my limiting beliefs. And I thought I didn't have it. And so I lived with that thought for many years, that I am not creative just because I wasn't in, music, singing, dancing, and performing, and drawing, and everything related to creativity. And when I started to own my own truth and really do the inner work and realize that creativity is within me, and it's my choice to reframe and shift that thought, and that I have the power to choose a thought that I am creative, I realized that started to activate what is already within me.
Mm.
And so when I started to acknowledge that and shift that mindset around, shift that thought that you still think, I'm not a creative person, I am someone on the other side that I know a lot more about maths and, accounts and numbers and graphs and all that. It's the shift. And when I own that, I can shift my own way of thinking. I started to have myself surrounded with people who are very creative, who can also share their perspective around how they transform themselves. And it's really interesting that I attract who I want to be.
Yeah.
And it was really powerful for our listeners to really take away that creativity is within you. It depends on how much you are willing to access that. And if you're willing to ask yourself to release and dig deeper, you will access even more level of creativity that's already available within us as an individual.
Yeah. I
So
love that.
our mind is ever so creative. It's already there. But what I've also known is that we only use a small percentage of our mind because we allow those thoughts to play as tunes over and over again. So the other component of our brain is really not accessed. They're just dormant. They're just thinking about the same thing over and over again. And so if we choose to really change that, we can access a whole nother level of goodness within us that is available. And like creativity, the more you sharpen it, the better you become.
Nice. I love that reminder. And I really appreciate you speaking to how transformation can be creative and where creativity can really blossom within the transformation of becoming who you want to be. And that there's a lot of creativity that goes into that and the digging deep within yourself to pull out the inner creative that you are and that we all are. So I appreciate that so much. Thank you for sharing it. I have one last question for you. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Oh, I love this question. When I'm creative, I'm really light. There's a lot of peace and calm in my whole body from head to toe. And there's the element of excitement and abundance that is just, the cells just really just, dance in my body. So I know that when I am in a space where it's heavy, it's hard, is dense, I know that I'm not in a creative mode. And to shift that, I would go, all right, how can I shift that? Because I know that creativity for me, I recognize is light, it's fun, it's soft, it's silky, it's gentle, it's kind, it's compassionate, it's very intuitive, it's very flowy. I know that that is for me how I feel creativity in my body.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have a visceral experience of you describing it of like, oh, I know what that feels like. The lightness, the silkiness, the joy, how it moves, how it shows up. So thank you. And thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. It has been a pure pleasure. If people want to learn more about the things that you do, your programs, where they can find you on social media, how could they go about doing that?
If you all have found that, what I've shared valuable and useful for you, I would love to connect with all of you on LinkedIn or Instagram and come and visit me on my webpage where, you can learn more about what I do, who I serve, and how I can help you take your dreams and goals closer. And there is actually a masterclass called How to Be a Magnetic Networker that you can download and learn more about who you are in terms of being a very, very magnetic person when you go to an offline or online networking event. It's more around you reflecting, and then you can actually implement that and have fun out of it because Once you have fun, you're going to actually magnetize the right people into your space and your orbit. So that's my invitation. And yeah, you're more than welcome as well for all the listeners to book a 45-minute free clarity call, and we can chat about, what you want to achieve, and then we can take it from there and just see where, if we are right match, we can work with each other. If it's not, hey, it's okay. It's part of just, the life journey together.
Absolutely. Well, I will put links to those in the show notes so people have easy access. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much, Marie. You're an awesome, powerful podcast host.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.